The fallen leaves tell a story.
Side quests in a From Software title are a little different to other games, where you otherwise might meet a character, chat a bit, get a quest notification, and then follow the markers or instructions until the end of that quest line. In Elden Ring, things are a bit more abstract. If you're just exploring the world without the help of guides or walkthroughs, finding and following an optional questline through to the end will depend a lot on your luck and your intuition. There are no helping hands here, basically. You have to dig a little deeper. So pretty much the same as every other system in the game. And there are tons of optional quests in Elden Ring, which not only deepen your connections to the characters and the world and reward some excellent equipment, but some can also alter the ending to the game. So do be aware that there are some spoilers ahead, but we've gathered together just some of the optional side quests you should definitely seek out while making your way through Elden Ring.
Soon, Marika's offspring, demigods all, claimed the shards of the Elden Ring.
They crossed the sea for me, they fought.
We've mentioned before in other videos, but we're going to say it again here. Anytime you're talking to an NPC in Elden Ring, make sure and speak to them over and over until you start getting a repeated line of dialogue. You can often miss important triggers or even items by only speaking to characters once or twice, so it pays to be thorough and exhaust any new dialogue options whenever you can. And also, don't forget to check out our other Elden Ring for Dummies videos if you haven't already. We have one on general tips, one on combat, and one on exploring the lands between themselves. So now, on to side quests. Enjoy.
Oh, you've come to be one with the spider? Well, that makes us two peas in a pod. But I don't have your courage.
This way, Tarnished. May I have a word?
Renna the Snow Witch is a pretty mysterious character when you first meet her perched on a wall in the Church of Ella. She very kindly gifts you the Spirit Summoning Bell, an exceptionally useful tool to aid you on your travels, and then she disappears into the night sky, doubting that the two of you might meet again one day. And indeed, to her credit, it is possible to play through the rest of Elden Ring and never see Renna again. Or you could embark on an epic optional adventure that will take you to multiple new locations, pit you against some challenging foes, and land on what some call the game's best ending. So, to see this Snow Witch again, you'll first need to travel to Caria Manor in the northern section of Liurnia of the Lakes, a truly awful place guarded by possibly the creepiest foes in Elden Ring. Yeah, no thanks. Anyway, at the end of this manor, you'll meet loyal knight Loretta, who should be a fairly straightforward fight. Once she's been bested, you can pass through her boss arena into an entirely new area called the Three Sisters, a large, kind of mountainous area comprising of 3 towers. Only one of these towers will be accessible at first, the middle one, called Ranni's Rise. At the very top of this, you will find Renna, or Ranni, as she is actually named. She'll ask for your help in finding the lost city of Nokron and its secret treasure, which, let's be honest, sounds like a very fun time. She'll also ask that you speak with her other allies, who appear in spectral form lower down in the tower. War Councillor Iji, a giant blacksmith who you might have met on the way to Caria Manor, Preceptor Saluvis, and Blythe, the half-wolf.
Good to finally meet. Name's Blythe. Sworn sword to Mistress Ranni. Glad to have you aboard.
Speak to them all, and then the next step of your journey is to Nokron. Now, depending on whether or not you've defeated Radahn in southeastern Caelid yet, there may be a few extra steps here, but the basic idea is, whether you speak to Blythe in Siofra River or not, you will eventually meet up with him in Redmane Castle to take on Starscourge Radahn. This is not an easy fight, by the way, so be prepared. Alternate between horseback and on foot, and make full use of the NPC summons in this area. When Radahn is finally beaten, you'll get a cutscene seeing a star falling to Earth. That star lands in East Limgrave. So, head for the south of Mistwood in Limgrave and you'll see a huge crater surrounded by floating rubble. Slowly make your way into the crater and you will eventually find Nokron, the Eternal City. Down here, explore and fight your way through, including battling the Mimic Tier boss and heading through the forest to the ancestral woods site of Grace. From here, you should see a bunch of rooftops that you can pick a path over. You're aiming to get to the area beneath the giant throned figure, where you can find the Finger Slayer blade in a chest below. This blade is the treasure that Ranni is after. So head back to Ranni in her tower now and she'll give you the Carrion inverted statue as a reward. You use this at the Carrion study hall in Liurnia to gain access to the Divine Tower of Liurnia, where you'll find another item needed for another alternate ending to the game. More on that in a little bit. But back at Three Sisters, resting at a site of grace will mean you can now access Renna's Rise, another tower in the Three Sisters area. Inside is a portal that will take you to Ansel River. Here, close to the area where you first appear, you will find a miniature Ranni doll. At a site of grace, you'll now see the option to talk to it. Do so a few times and it'll eventually reply.
Oh. A dogged fellow, aren't we?
Telling you to go to Noxtella to kill a shade. Talking to the doll at a few more sites of grace, by the way, will uncover more of her story, until she finally goes quiet. If you are interested in Ranni's story and the deeper lore of Elden Ring, by the way, we have a brand new video on the channel exploring just that, so make sure and check that out after this. Now thankfully you can reach Noxtella in the Ansel River main area. You get there by following the river west from the northern Ul Palace ruins. In Noxtella, you'll be making your way past the huge upside-down bug that's firing gravity magic at you. You don't have to fight it, just run straight past. Down into a garden with ant-riding monks and finding yet another elevator. Down there, at the Noxtella Waterfall Basin site of Grace, you'll move forward past some basilisks, a From Software classic enemy, until you're invaded by a baleful shade that looks a lot like Blythe.
O Shadow, thou art the last. Tell the two fingers that Ranni the Witch cometh to rend thy flesh.
Kill him, and use the coffins to create some space between you if you need to, by the way. And Ranni will then give you the discarded palace key as a thank you. This key opens the locked chest that you might have noticed in the Raya Lucaria Grand Library where Renala's boss fight took place. Open the chest and take the Dark Moon ring that's inside. Whew! Next up, back where you fought Blade's Shade, you can continue on until you reach the Lake of Rot. I know, sounds lovely. There are actually switches here that you can press to make a safe pathway across, but if you have enough flasks to make it alive, this is probably an easier and quicker option as there's a site of grace just on the other side. Use that, and then use the ledges to make your way down to the floor below, and go the opposite way of the main building you can see to find a lonely stone coffin waiting. So long as you haven't aggroed any of the centipede enemies, you can climb in and wait. You'll be transported to a boss fog door, and beyond is a very bizarre boss that looks more Bloodborne than Elden Ring, honestly. This is Astel, Natural Born of the Void. The Mimic Tear summon, which you can pick up from a chest behind a stone sword door in Nokron, will help massively here, especially if you can level it up with Roderika. Once Astel is dead, head up the elevator here and towards the cathedral you can see, ignoring the dragon wandering around if you like. There's a hole that you can carefully drop down inside in this cathedral, and at the bottom you will find a very gruesome sight. Now, all you need to do is slip the Dark Moon ring on Ranni's finger and she'll thank you for your service as her champion, disappearing but leaving behind the Dark Moon Greatsword, an item that will be familiar to players of other From Software games, as a version of it has appeared in all of the Soulsborne titles so far. It requires fairly high intelligence to wield, but its frostbite building long-range special skill is very handy indeed. With that, Ranni's questline is completed. But once you defeat the final boss of Elden Ring, your actions here will unlock another optional ending to the game. And before that, if you go back to Ranni's Rise, you'll also get extra info as to what happened to Blythe. But beware, this isn't as happy an ending as we'd like. So fan-favourite character Ranni and her questline offers one potential ending to the game, along with some very exciting and unique boss fights and items. But she isn't the only NPC to do this. You may have already met Fia, the deathbed companion in the Round Table Hold. Maybe you've even accepted a hug or two from her. But Fia is not all that she seems. She gives you a consumable item, the Baldachin's Blessing, if you allow her to hug you. This blessing consumes FP in order to increase your poise. Check out our Elden Ring Beginner's Tips video, by the way, if you want an explainer as to how poise works. But what Fia doesn't mention is that having this item actually very slightly decreases your overall health too. Don't worry, using this item will get your lost health back immediately, but yeah, be careful who you let hold you, I guess. See, now this is exactly why we have trust issues. Now, in northeastern Limgrave, there's an area called Summonwater Village. On the outskirts of this town, a man called Dee, a hunter of the dead, will warn you of the village's dangers, namely a bunch of undead skeletons. Defeating the Tibia Mariner in the village and returning to Dee, he'll offer to introduce you to a beast clergyman in Caelid. Agree to this offer and eventually Dee will move to the Round Table Hold as a merchant. You can learn a little bit more about Dee if you've also met a sorcerer named Rogier in Stormvale Castle, who eventually also moves to the Round Table Hold. Rogier tells you that Dee once had a brother. Anyway, once you reach Altus Plateau, returning to Round Table Hold and talking to Fia will cause her to ask you for a favour. She gives you a weathered dagger and asks you to find its original owner.
Give it to me as a gift. It's a very precious thing. It must have a special place in the owner's heart.
Luckily, by that stage, they're pretty close by. And it's D. Talk to him and hand it over. Rest at a site of grace or reload the game, and a door beyond where the blacksmith works is now open.
That hardly matters.
Fia is there, standing over Dee's corpse.
Finally, it is returned to its rightful place. The stolen Hallowbrand of the exalted noble. And now, I must bid you goodbye as well.
She'll say her goodbyes and disappear from the Round Table Hold forever. But you can grab Dee's armour from his body at this point. Now, to continue Fia's quest, you will need to travel to the Deeproot Depths. To get there, head back to where you fought the Mimic Tyr in Siofra River. Follow the stone bridge ahead until you're able to get back onto land via a broken section on the left. From here, head north and towards the cliffs to the left of the northern Hallowhorn grounds. Basically, if you see spirit jellyfish by the cliffs, you're on the right track and in the right place. Drop down the cliff edge, follow the slope towards a tunnel in the north. This tunnel leads to the aqueduct proper, where you'll find a site of grace. So definitely use that first and then head into the building ahead. You can sneak past a few of the enemies below in this area, but essentially you're looking for a man hunched over on a balcony close to a large set of stairs. You have the option here to give him the twinned armor set that you found on Dee's body, because this man is actually Dee's brother. Be aware first though that in doing this, you are altering the end of this quest line, ensuring that, spoiler alert, Dee's brother eventually kills Fia as revenge for the death of his bro. Whichever option you choose, up those steps close to Dee's brother, you will be facing a boss fight against 2 gargoyles. Beating them, maybe with the help of your Mimic Tyr, will allow you to climb into another lonely stone coffin close by, which will transport you to the Deeproot Depths. Make your way through this area, and in the main hub, look out for a place where you can climb some higher branches. Up here in a huge open area, you'll face 3 champions of Fia, and after defeating them, Fia herself will finally appear. Do not tell her that you're there to kill her. Instead, ask to be held.
To deny us and our ways, like the dogmatic brutes of the Golden Order. You are an odd one.
Now, remember that carrion inverted statue we were given by Ranni? Heading to Liurnia and using that at the Carrion Study Hall will turn the whole tower upside down, allowing you to finally climb to the Divine Tower of Liurnia, where you'll find a potentially familiar corpse at the top. The item gained from this corpse is what Fia is after at this point in her questline, so whether you grabbed it before or you go and do so now, head back to her, give it over, and Fia will be very pleased with you. Keep talking to her, hear her very strange plans for Godwyn and the future of the lands between, and then rest/travel or just reload the area. Fia will be fast asleep, but getting close and examining her will transport you into a boss fight against a fearsome dragon. Defeating it will award you the item needed for another alternate ending to the game. And if you gave the armor set to Dee's brother, you can return to Fia one last time to see what becomes of her. Reloading once more or simply fighting Dee's brother will give you his armor set and sword back. Whew, it is exhausting work being an Elden Lord, but guess what? We are not done yet.
Behold, your mother is dead.
Another alternate ending to the game can be gotten by following the questline of the delightfully named Dung Eater, if you're so inclined. So Dung Eater is a character that will eventually show up in the Round Table Hold, hidden away in a room filled with dead bodies. He isn't the friendliest of NPCs, and going by his red hue, he's actually an invader to the Round Table Hold. The loathsome Dung Eater is actually an awful individual in a world of awful individuals. He kills and defiles corpses in the hope of bringing a plague to the world, cultivating a seedbed curse on his victims to prevent their souls from returning to the Erd Tree, basically cursing them forever. You can actually find his victims throughout the Lands Between with this seedbed curse item on them. And so eventually, the Phantom Invader Dung Eater in the Round Table Hold will ask you to free his corporeal flesh trapped deep below the capital city, and he gives you a key to do so. Now, though this doesn't sound like a great idea, you can get to the sewers under Lanedale via a well, and eventually reach the subterranean shunning grounds. Here, behind a locked door, you will find the real Dung Eater, and talking to him will free him.
Must eat more. Defile more. Who are you? I've been here long enough. I will kill again. And defile each corpse with care.
Returning to the Round Table Hold, Invader Dung Eater will be gone, leaving you a very friendly and not at all ominous note: I'll defile you next, come to the outer moat. Now the moat he mentions is the outer moat of Lanedale, so head here on your map. Be careful to avoid spawning crabs. And you'll fight Dung Eater. Defeating him, he'll be back at the Round Table Hold again, and it seems he now sees you as a protege of sorts. He'll ask you to bring his real body, the one in the cell you unlocked under Lanedale, 5 seedbed curses. After doing this, you will unlock the rune needed for his unique ending to the game. It is a pretty awful ending all things considered, but hey, no judgment here. Yeah, okay, a little judgment here.
A curse. Upon them all.
Oi! You there!
On a maybe more positive note, another side quest that's worth picking up is that of Boc the Seamster. You'll first find Boc pretty early on in the game near the telescope in Limgrave. He's kinda difficult to spot at first because he's been turned into a tree, as you do.
What'd you go and do that for?
Roll into or hit him and you'll see that he's actually a rather clever demi-human. Exhaust his dialogue and you'll next find him at the coastal cave in Limgrave, looking pretty badly beaten up. Defeat the demi-human bosses further inside this cave and return to Boc with the tailoring tools and sewing needle they drop. With that, Boc can now make small alterations to your armor free of charge. as opposed to changing your armor at a Site of Grace, which actually charges you a fee. You can find Boc at a number of locations after giving him the needle, at the lake-facing cliffs in Liurnia, at the East Ray Lucaria Site of Grace, and at the Altus Highway Junction Site of Grace. You can also find a gold sewing needle at the Church of Vows in eastern Liurnia to give to him so that he can alter legendary armor. Melina will talk about Boc at the East Lucaria Gate if you choose to chat with her too. Eventually, at the East Capital Rampart Site of Grace, Boc will express his desire to change form, believing himself to be ugly and that he's heard it's something Rennala is able to do. You can encourage Boc to do this, giving him a larval tear item to make it possible for him to be reborn. You find these throughout the world dropped by enemies that turn into other enemies when killed, by the way. Or you can use a prattling pate sculpture, found in the Hermit Village on Mount Gelmir, to tell Boc that he's beautiful instead. If you give him the larval tear, you can travel to the Rea Lucaria Grand Library to find a newly human, transformed Boc. Though, sadly, he seems to have lost his lovely chatty nature. Resting at a Site of Grace or travelling back to this area will find Boc dead. Okay, so it's a bit of a tragic side quest in the end, but well, what else did you expect from this game? Boc is just one example of a sweet, kind-hearted person living in a very cruel and dangerous world, so of course he wasn't destined to see the end of this game.
You're beautiful.
Tell them I love them.
Another example of this is the tragic story between Roderika and blacksmith master Hewg in Round Table Hold. I mean, it isn't really a side quest as such, but talking to the two of them over the course of the game reveals a very sweet, almost father-daughter-like relationship between the two, who really only want the best for one another. So, of course, they want to stay in the Round Table Hold looking out for one another until the bitter end.
Hewg was always saying that you were a lord to him. So
I ask you one more time.
Speaking of bitter endings, how about one more explainer for an alternate ending to the game? Now, bear in mind, what we've covered in this video aren't all the endings Elden Ring offers, they're just the ones that we quite enjoyed finding. Now, this ending is slightly different to the ones that we've already covered, in that if you go down this path, you will be branded, locking you into that ending unless specific actions are taken before a specific point in time. For all the others, you can basically do all of the quests and then choose the item associated with that ending to lock it in after the final boss battle. But anyway, some characters may whisper the existence of the 3 fingers as you make your way through the game. But to actually find those 3 fingers, you'll need to return to the subterranean shunning grounds where you freed Dung Eater. Fighting your way through that dungeon will take you eventually to the Cathedral of the Forsaken, where you'll fight Mog the Omen. Challenging boss who awards you 100,000 runes on defeat. In the room where you fight him, there's a pedestal you can approach to find a new path. Very carefully falling your way down a hole to reach the Frenzied Flame Proscription Site of Grace at the bottom. Now, take off all your armor and weapons, so get as naked as you can, and approach the nearby creepy door. You'll be embraced by the three fingers on the other side and be marked. If you talk to Melina again at a site of grace, she will not be too pleased with you, and bear in mind that if you get too far into the endgame, there is no coming back from this ending. Unless you do some lengthy optional areas and defeat some of the toughest bosses in the game. Yep, that sounds like Elden Ring, alright.
You are no longer fit.
So we've really just covered a handful of optional side quests in Elden Ring. There are honestly tons more to find, which will open up new areas, allow you to fight unique bosses, and obtain special equipment. But this video is already getting a little bit long, so we may have to save that for another day. Bear in mind too that we have a bunch of videos that will deep dive into the lore of Elden Ring coming up very soon on the channel, so make sure and subscribe so you don't miss any of those. As always, let us know your suggestions for new videos in the comments, keep up the improvement, and we will see you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!